Welcome into Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's program, looking at the preseason winners and losers after their last preseason game up against the Los Angeles Rams. Which Texans came out on top and which one might not make the roster? I'll let you know all my thoughts on every single Houston Texans player that you need to know about after this game. But preseason week 3, Texans got another dub, 17-15. They did not play any of the starters. The entire starting offense did not play, including some of the backups, which we'll get into later on in the program. But Tim Boyle played almost the entire game. Case Keenum still trying to figure out what happened with him. There were reports that, he got maybe injured in that first quarter, but Tim Boyle did the rest of the game, 19-28, 142, 2 touchdowns. It was, okay. Cam Akers, 7 carries, 53 yards for him. He had a very impressive day. And Xavier Hutchinson, 4 receptions for 34 yards on the day. Looked really good for the Houston Texans with, all things considered, a lot of backups in. I thought the defense looked really well as well. Dresser Wynn, who played the entire game for the Rams, only went 9-16 for 72 yards. Leading carrier for the Rams, Zach Evans, 14 carries, 45 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the day for him. And Xavier Smith, 4 receptions for 34 yards on the day for him. So Texans really played well considering, a lot of backups in this preseason game. A lot of guys who are, maybe not going to make the roster, ended up playing a lot of time in today's game. But I think it gave DeMeco Ryans, this coaching staff, this front office, a lot to look at going into this week. Reminder, cutdown day is on Tuesday. So a lot of these guys, this could be their last game in the NFL. This could be their last chance to impress the coaching staff. So a lot of these guys really showed out and were really trying to, put a last impression in on this coaching staff and front office. For more elite coverage of this Texans team, make sure you go down and hit that sub button. We are bringing you Texans news and rumors content every single day. More live shows to come, more stuff for the future, so don't miss out. It's 100% free. Go down and hit that sub button or go to youtube.com/TexansTV for daily Texans content. Now let's look at the winners up against the Los Angeles Rams. First up, Cam Akers. And I'll get into everything you need to know about Dameon Pierce later on in the program, but let's just focus on the good. Let's focus on Cam Akers right now. Let's not focus on the whole running back room in total. Cam Akers, he looked fantastic. No matter what he was doing, whether he was carrying the football or catching the ball out of the backfield. And granted, he was going up against backups with the Los Angeles Rams, but 7 carries, 53 yards, along a 23, and he finished off that run with a nice truck stick up against the Rams defender. He also had multiple plays where he showed amazing vision, being able, there's one that stuck out to me. He was a stretch run to the right. He almost like an Arian Foster type run, kind of sticks his foot in the ground, completely changes direction, goes left, gets about like 12 yards on the play. He was all over the place. Had an amazing highlight where he caught the ball, and it seemed like he juked out the entire Rams defense. He spanned like 4 times in a row. He was on fire all day up against the Los Angeles Rams. A little interested to see that he played some time in the second half, just because I think Cam Akers has proven himself a lot during training camp in the preseason. But, he put on a show for all the people out at NRG today. Cam Akers, probably my biggest winner from today's game. I want to know from you, though, who do you think was the biggest winner up against the Los Angeles Rams today? Which person improved their stock the most? Who do you think really took that leap forward? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's video. So if you get a YouTube ad break, perfect timing. Just scroll on down and let me know your answer. Next up is going to be Malik Fisher, a defensive end the Texans signed from the UFL. He was with the DC Defenders last season, but he looked really good as well. He made a 1 play at the goal line on that 2-point conversion that the Rams tried after they scored the touchdown. I think he really stepped up. He had 3 tackles on the day. He looked really good, was able, get some pass rush moves. Still young, 25 years old for Malik Fisher. So I think he really proved himself as well as being maybe a rotational guy, maybe a back end of the roster guy after, the top guys on the defensive end depth chart. You have Will Anderson, you have Danielle Hunter. I think Derek Barnett might be that third guy, but then it's between, Malik Fisher, Ali Gay, a couple other guys, Solomon Byrd as well. But I think Malik Fisher looked really well, and I think, he could possibly be that fourth edge rusher that the Texans are looking for on this defensive line. Dylan Horton, he's been dealing with still, what he's had to deal with his battle with cancer. So right now he is on the injury list for that, the injury and illness list. So when it comes to that third, fourth, fifth guy, they also did sign veteran Jerry Hughes, but I think possibly you're looking at Malik Fisher, he could be that fourth or fifth option for the Houston Texans. Next up, John Metchie. He looked fantastic as well. It's been a roller coaster all season for John Metchie. I was a little low, and then I was really high. CJ Stroud, everybody saying, he looked fantastic. And then those first couple preseason games, didn't see a lot out of Metchie. Didn't see him a ton, especially in that Hall of Fame game up against the Chicago Bears. And, John Metchie, the wide receiver, I think he proved himself and looked really good up against the Houston Texans. Not Johnny Johnson, but John Metchie, the wide receiver, looked really good. And I think, he's probably solidified a spot for himself on this Texans offense. I think he's looked really good. I think, Johnny Johnson, 2 receptions, 28 yards, and a touchdown on the day. He looked pretty good. I don't know if he'll end up making the team. We can just go to the wide receiver depth chart. How about that, Tex? We can just go to the wide receiver depth chart. But I think John Metchie looked really good. And I think, with this wide receiver depth chart with the Texans and where they're at right now, I do think that Metchie could earn himself a spot on this roster. You have your top 3 guys in Stefon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell. Then, the next guys up, you have John Metchie, Noah Brown, Xavier Hutchinson. I think those are the next 3 in. You also have Robert Woods, another guy who didn't play today. Very weird, in my opinion, Robert Woods sitting out today's game. I mean, he's a veteran. Maybe he makes this roster. I think more likely he might be on the move and doesn't want to get injured. But Ben Skoranek didn't seem like he was all in it today. Steven Sims had a couple nice plays. Quintus Cephas as well, and Johnny Johnson. I just think John Metchie, what he was able to do, and the plays that he was in, he looked good. I think John Metchie has a spot on this roster. And when it comes down to the last wide receiver, guys to fill out the roster, I don't know if they keep 6. I don't know if they keep 7. But I think John Metchie should be in that 6 or 7. And same with this next guy, Xavier Hutchinson. I think Xavier Hutchinson looked really good today, had an amazing catch. He was kind of went in on a slant route. The ball was behind him, and he climbed up the ladder and was able to catch the ball. Xavier Hutchinson has been really proving himself and really, putting himself out there for this coaching staff all throughout this preseason. Going back to that first game against the Chicago Bears in the Hall of Fame game, he looked fantastic. And I think Xavier Hutchinson, his work, in the receiving game during the preseason, and he's been really focusing on helping out in special teams this offseason. So those 2 things together, I really think Xavier Hutchinson can also make this Texans roster as a wide receiver. Now, I have some losers from the preseason, some guys who their stock might have went down a little bit. But before I get into all that, I couldn't do today's show if it wasn't for our sponsors over at PrizePicks. Football season is back. Get started with the #1 daily fantasy sports app where you can turn your football knowledge into cold hard cash. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. And there's, some season-long projections that you can get into this season. There's a lot of Texans that are in on those season-long projections. This one pretty interesting if you ask me. Stefon Diggs, 899.5 receiving yards on the season. I'm going to go more on that. Joe Mixon, 849.5 rush yards. Give me the more on that. And Tank Dell, 65.5 receptions on the year. I think this Texans offense is going to explode. If you agree with me, you can use my picks. If not, you can go against my picks. Just do it over at PrizePicks. If you're looking for promotions too, PrizePicks has you covered every single week, and they have a very special deal for this season. Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on PrizePicks every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every weekend in September. 4 weeks of free wins. So don't miss out on this deal on PrizePicks because it's gone when September ends. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, run your game. Now some losers. And I was really going back and forth on this on what it meant because Dameon Pierce did not play today. He actually did not suit up. The RB2, the supposed RB2 for the Texans this year, did not suit up today, did not play up against the Los Angeles Rams. And we didn't see a ton of Dameon Pierce throughout the preseason. You know, we've heard a lot about Dameon Pierce, you know, training camp, he's looked good. You know, the offseason, he's putting in a ton of work. He's looked really good, Dameon Pierce has. But I don't know what to make of him not playing in this game. Aaron Wilson reported, you know, it's a good thing that Dameon Pierce didn't play in this game because the coaching staff really believes in him. But how can you look at this as a good thing when Cam Akers, when Jawhar Jordan, when even British Brooks all look fantastic so far in the preseason throughout all these games, and Dameon Pierce just hasn't had it yet? I mean, I remember his rookie season. He was fantastic, and maybe it is the coaching staff change. Maybe it is the scheme change for Dameon Pierce, but I think it means one of two things. I think either him not playing means he's a lock to make the roster, or that means he's getting traded. Those are the two things that I think him not playing means. I don't think he ends up getting cut from this team. I think it's either he's a lock or he's getting traded. What do you think it meant for Dameon Pierce not to play in today's game? The last preseason game, a healthy scratch from today's game. What say you? Do you think it means that he's getting traded? Do you think he means he's a lock to make this roster? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Next up, Troy Hairston. And this one's another tough one because, you know, Troy Hairston scored one of the touchdowns for the Texans today. Was that first touchdown, caught a reception, a little, you know, play action, a little spider 2Y banana action to the fullback. Troy Hairston, 2 receptions, 11 yards, and a touchdown. Just way too many mistakes, though. Missed blocks. He had like 3 or 4 penalties on the day. Troy Hairston, I know, you know, the coaching staff likes him. Good fullback option. But at the same time, if you want to make this team, if you want to help out on this team, you got to play special teams. And he was consistently penalized in today's game. You can't, in a regular season game, that stuff gets you cut. That stuff gets you benched. You're not playing the game anymore if you have penalty on top of penalty on top of penalty. 3 or 4 penalties in one game is egregious. You cannot have that happen in the National Football League. Troy Hairston, I thought he played pretty decently. Besides that, obviously, like I said, got a touchdown in today's game. But if you're having, you know, 3, 4 penalties in a game, that's not going to fly in the regular season. So that makes him one of the losers from today's game for me. Desmond King, this was another interesting one. With guys playing and with guys not playing. I know a lot of us think very highly of Desmond King. He's been a really good slot corner guy. I found it interesting, though, that he was playing today. A lot of the starters were not playing today. A lot of guys who were going to, you know, be playing meaningful time for this Texans team this year were not in the game. Desmond King was, though. On defense and in special teams. He ended up muffing a punt that led to a Rams field goal on their first drive. And then he was in the game. And it's really weird because the Texans are doing this thing with their safeties, with Jalen Peter, with Jimmy Ward, where they're playing a lot of slot corner. Could that be a replacement for Desmond King, and they're looking at other options at corner, at outside corner? I don't know. It's really interesting. I was really perplexed onto why Desmond King was playing today because I thought he's a good option at cornerback, and I think, you know, he should be a starter on this team. Maybe if they're not going to, you know, have him play slot, and they're going to have Jalen Peter maybe play there instead. I'm not sure, but Desmond King muffing the punt, playing in today's game as a veteran, as somebody, you know, who we see as, you know, possibly a starting player on this team, and he's in the last preseason game when everybody else is sitting out. I found that a little bit weird, in my opinion. And lastly, injuries for this Texans team. Not a ton. Thankfully, throughout the preseason, mostly unscathed. Knock on wood if you're with me. Knock on wood. Hopefully, we don't see any more injuries. But there were a couple that happened today. Chris Boyd, cornerback, I thought he's played decently during the preseason. He was injured today in this preseason game. Came back on the sidelines, had a little bit of a wrap on his leg. But he was injured, so I don't know how severely. Brandon Hill, the second-year safety out of Pittsburgh, he was carted off in this game. So still waiting on some updates of Brandon Hill. He had his leg in an air cast, so I'll keep y'all updated with all the injury information around Brandon Hill as we get going. And then Christian Harris. We haven't seen him at all. He's been injured. He tried coming back to practice, you know, tweaked that calf, that lower leg injury that he's had, and then he hasn't been practicing anymore. So is he going to be ready for week 1? I'm not sure, but a little worrisome that I haven't seen anything of Christian Harris. And the Texans think very highly of Christian Harris. They think of him as their other legit starting linebacker option alongside Azeez Al-Shire. If he's not ready week 1, I'm not sure who that starting option should be next to Azeez. Now, I have one bonus loser. I lied. I have actually one bonus loser. And it's the rest of the league because Stroud and company are about to ball on all of them throughout this season. He said, I don't fear any man. I only fear God because Stroud is him. He knows that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He knows he's the franchise. He is the showstopper. He is the prime time C.J. Stroud. Yeah, and he is going to be tromping over every single opposing defense throughout this season. The rest of the league, they better watch out because CJ7, he's on one, and he's ready to dominate going into year 2. Now, if you want to continue the conversation, go ahead and give me a follow on social media at Jeremy Chuggs on X. I have a brand new IG page at Texans Today CS on Instagram and made a new TikTok at Jeremy Chuggs. You can follow me there as well. Brand new. So have some cool content on there. If you want to go check it out, all those links are going to be available to you in the comment section of today's video. And if you haven't already made it to the end of the video, why not hit that sub button for daily Texans content all year long? More live shows to come. Had a great time with our live show today. I know it's the last preseason game. None of the starters were playing, but had a great time. Gave away a Tank Dell jersey as well. So if you want in on some of those giveaways, more Texans content throughout the entire season, make sure you hit that sub button for free Texans content all year long.